Every operator is trying to develop a unique connection to their guests, and most times they do it with food. Rarely do we see a chef that brings the full plate in connection with a massive Instagram following, multiple books, and now multiple restaurants. Join us as we explore menu innovation and launching a new restaurant right here in Miami. Listen in. All right, so welcome to the show, Adrianne. Thanks for stopping in today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's so wonderful to be here.
Yeah. We get to do this podcast a lot with people calling in to our cloud studio. Of course, now you're right here in studio, so great to have you. I think this is going to be fun.
It's going to be a great ride.
All right, so Adrianne, let's jump into a little bit about you and your background. Your current restaurant, kind of one of the Miami icons. For our guests and people maybe who have never visited the Miami dining scene, tell us about what you got going down there in Kendall.
Well, I've had a restaurant called Chef Adrianne's Vineyard Restaurant and Wine Bar for 12 and a half years now. Anybody would say I'm obsessed with food. I'm obsessed really with the reaction people have with food. As much as I love it, I love how people love it. I love what it does to people. So that's kind of been the fuel for I guess, my baby foodie empire.
Right. I like that. And you do something called Dining in the Dark, of course. You're kind of the chef noted for that in this region down here. That I've had a chance to do that a couple times, and it's a very different culinary experience when you kind of go and take sight out of the game.
Oh, yes. I mean, Dining in the Dark was something that they were doing it in Europe about more than a decade ago, but they would be in the dark, not blindfolded. Right. So I thought, how can we take this a little bit further? I'm always taking things a little bit further. And we came up with actually blindfolding our guests so that they can't even see. What happens is that if you're in the dark, eventually you'll see your hand in front of you. Your pupils dilate and you're able to see in the dark.
Right.
Well, when you're blindfolded completely, well, you can't. And all of a sudden you're sensitive to the sense of touch, smell, sound, and ultimately taste. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you become extremely sensitive to what's spicy, what's salty, what's sour. And my favorite part is when people go in there not liking something and come out of there completely in love with a new food.
Yeah, that's the cool part.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anybody in any of your Dining in the Darks just like get a little freaked out?
Well, no one's ever been freaked out with dark dining because I actually like to keep the menu simple because you're going to be surprised if you eat something you've never heard of or never have experienced before. Well, you're always going to be surprised whether you're blindfolded or not. So we really enjoy bringing the guests something that they've always had, like something very familiar or that they've been surrounded with all the time. Mm-hmm. A common one, people don't like fish. They have a misconception about fish. It smells or they're just grossed out about it, right? Well, we'd serve this beautiful piece of grilled mahis, very simple, and they're usually like, I love that chicken. Well, and then I come out, I'm like, no, well, you had mahi. Yeah. And they're like, wow, I'm 45 years old and I've never liked fish. And from now on, I'm going to eat fish everywhere. Yeah. You know, and then that's just kind of like the remarkable experience of dark dining.
Yeah, it kind of strips away the preconceived notions about certain types of cuisine.
Yes.
Which is true. I think a lot of people will stay away from certain, especially when you get into Latin food, people will kind of back off away from certain kinds of spices and things of that nature.
They're afraid to try.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you're an author.
Yes.
You're doing segments here in Miami on TV. How often do you do those?
So I'm on NBC Local here in Miami. In the Mix, every Thursday we go live, and I'll do a different maximum flavor recipe. So I get to share with our viewers locally, you know, whatever we're doing new at the restaurant or just something that's just off the top of my head that I'd love for them to cook at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the books. Let's go a little bit. What are you doing right now on the book lineup?
Well, currently I'm promoting my newest cookbook, The A-List. We're kind of on tour with that. It's a 2-volume, 100 of my finest recipes. It's taken a long time to cook up, no pun intended. But it's been 100 recipes that are either from competitions, they're fan favorites from the restaurants, or they're just something with a wonderful story behind it. But they're 100 of my best so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. And how did you acquire these recipes? What was the process?
Well, we collected, let's say, dishes that were fan favorites from the restaurant, some stuff that we can't take off the menu, and it's been 12 years on the menu. There's stuff that's won competitions. Then we just wanted to share what was the best of the top.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Like the greatest hits.
I like it. Has there been anything in those 100 recipes that is really standing out, or people now that they're starting to get the book and go, oh, these are the ones, the A-list of the A-list?
Well, you wouldn't believe it. There's a couple of grilled shrimp recipes that are super simple, but I think they're so creative, and people are really taking a liking to them. I don't know if it's seasonal, just because we're in summertime right now, but we do this one with a mango habanero glaze and a cucumber relish, and we have another one with kiwi and green apple on top, and it's basically just combining seafood with fruit and that sweet and spicy effect to it. And I mean, it's just they'll send me pictures. This is what I made, and things like that. And it's been really well received with guests.
Yeah.
Or readers, I mean.
Yeah. Well, I've been to your restaurant. Great job always. The service there is amazing. That's the one thing I think that is what makes your restaurant so unique and different is the service level. You seem to control that whole process once a guest comes in. And
well, service, I think, as far as, food is so important, but service, I think, is even more important, because if you treat people well, like they're part of the family or your friends, they'll give you another chance if they have a slip up with food. You're welcoming them. I tell my staff, don't be so fluffy or like uptight, or, let's not be that whole silverware and white glove service, but we don't want to be super fast casual either. So we have to find that middle ground, and that's really welcoming people into your home. Think that every guest that's coming through there, it's that aunt and uncle that you haven't seen in 10 years, and you're welcoming them excitedly, and you want to serve them whatever is in your fridge that's the best that you have, or maybe, you baked a cake for them, something really heartwarming.
Yeah.
And people, when they're received that way, they remember. They remember when the hostess looks you in the eye and says, "We're so happy to see you. Welcome to Chef Adrianne's," and that's the human part. That's what separates just being a business and being human.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing that we have got to get more and more operators to really focus in on is, that level of service that kind of connects to the guest, in the sense of, especially when you look at what we're seeing now in the industry, is certain kinds of restaurants trending down versus some that are really kind of excelling now. It seems like the really great ones are starting to separate from the pack.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Totally. I think that service is something, as more casual places open, service is something that's diminishing, and it's something that should not in any way. I think that we need to really, as an industry, find this balance where, at the end of the day, going out to eat and having that food experience, it's heavily relied on service, because that's the difference between you just buying something through a to-go window or drive-through, And it's such a beautiful thing to actually, have somebody go and talk to you about a dish and say, "Are you celebrating something special?" And then that's the evolution of a memory, food-based.
Right. Yeah. Well, I like the fact that you guys are doing such a good job with it.
Thank you.
Congrats there. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that we're going to cover here in today's episode is obviously you stepping on to Foodable Network as the host of Season 2 of Chef AF. It's all food. So welcome to that show. And we're going to break it down. And then I want to kind of dive into what you're dealing with right now on opening a couple of restaurants. So we're going to get a chance to do those. Let's just jump into Chef AF real quick.
Okay.
All right. So we casted that this year. We put out a call for chefs across the country. I was amazed at how many chefs came back, because I had never really thought about chefs really wanting to do a podcast. This is kind of a new thing. And so congratulations, you outpaced like 30 different chefs that were vying for that spot.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I think podcasts is such a great platform. And I think chefs in general, we have, a lot of people want insight into our industry. They want to know what chefs eat. They want to know what chefs are doing, how the creative process, the hiring process. They want to know how we create restaurants.
Right.
But they also want to know kind of like backstage of the chef life. And who would have a better vantage point than an actual chef?
Sure.
So this is genius. You did good. You did real good creating this.
Well, and the cool thing is Jim Berman was our host for season 1. He went into some really crazy topics, everything down to food critics. We looked at, the Yelping aspect of it, all the way into the issue with some of the sexual harassment issues that chefs are facing now in today's kitchens. And I think when we looked at it, the idea was try to bring a voice to the podcast that would really kind of move it up even more than where it had already grown to. And we're going to try to do this each season and kind of explode it. The topics that you'll be covering, let's kind of go through a few of them. And one that I thought was very interesting was this whole independent, small concept. What are your thoughts around that? Because we're not leaking any guest names yet.
Okay.
But let's talk about that.
I'm genuinely interested in how these tiny restaurants, I want to know, and I want our listeners to learn the smallest restaurants in New York City, the smallest restaurant in LA, the smallest restaurant in Miami, these major cities, how do they work? Yeah. I'm interested in knowing their operation. Like, how do their numbers work? How do they stay in business, and how do they make it? Because as I'm not just a chef, I'm an operator. So I know, the amount of seats matters as far as your business plan. So I want to know a place that has 6 or 7 seats. How does this become a successful business? Yeah, so that's one of them. That's one of the ones I want to really dive into.
Yeah, well, unit economics is a big deal in the restaurant industry. Everybody, whether you're an investor or a chef operator like yourself, one of the key things there is unit economics in the sense of what your numbers are going to need to be able to just keep the place operational.
Right.
You've been around for a long time in Kendall. How long is that restaurant running?
Chef Adrianne's has been open for 12 and a half years.
That's great. That's a long run for a restaurant.
Oh, it is. Even a successful restaurant, they have their lifespan. But, keeping things fresh and keeping things new and keeping the favorites on the menu, I think it's a really good balance. It's a delicate dance, the restaurant industry.
The point that you get into that we're going to talk on Chef AF, and that is the idea behind female chefs. All right, so we've got some really great ones that have kind of come to the surface over the past couple of years. Obviously, you're one of the leading female chefs here in Miami. People like Dominique Crin out of San Francisco, considered one of the top 5 chefs in the U.S. today. What are your thoughts on being a female chef in mostly a male-dominated industry?
Well, I mean, this topic, this one is near and dear to me because being a female chef and even still being, I would say, I don't deal with a lot of the struggles that female chefs do because I own my own business and I make my own rules. I make my own way pretty much now. But exactly what you just said, in the last couple of years, the women are rising. There's something wrong in that statement alone. The last couple of years, you're right. Because that is the truth. Yep. And still to this day, I was researching how many executive chefs are women in hotels. If you look them up, there's very, very few. It's a handful in America. And why? Because they can't go up the ladder. Because, men are at the top of the chain. That's what happens. Yep. And it's just, they're not, even the pay gap is different. A woman will not get paid on the line the same as a man would. I don't know why, but that's just what it is. It's just the hard truth.
Even with the demand for line cooks, like what we're seeing right now, because line cook, the shortage is insane.
It's insane, and that's due to the pay range. There's other jobs out there now that are like on-demand jobs, All
right, so the gig economy is taking over and
correct. So that pay range, people are like, well, I'll just flip my phone on and I'll do something. Well, that's exactly what I didn't know if we were allowed to say that. I'll do that and I'll get paid the same as a line cook or more, know. So that's created a big, it's like a crater in the line cook industry. Yeah. And yet, but they still won't hire women.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a very physical job, I have to say. I have to admit. So
Sure.
you have to be physically fit to do this. And if, children become a factor, if they ask you right away in an interview, do you have children? And immediately they'll be like,
Really?
yes. And also,
I didn't know that you could even do that.
it'll come up in conversation.
Oh,
And these are
okay.
tricks of the trade. And so what happens is that you're blacklisted.
Do you have a family?
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, really? That's great. What brought you to Miami? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. And that conversation will reveal that you have so-and-so, so-and-so. And then all of a sudden they already see you as you're going to go to the soccer games. You're going to have a child with a tooth growing in and you have to stay home. So you become, that's just the hard truth.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, how do we get past that?
Well, I think that, society in general is changing.
Yeah.
Dads are taking their kids to the doctor when
Lot more
needed.
role, yeah.
Roles are changing. So until I think society itself starts to see this as an actual viable way that families are, dads stay at home now, dads do laundry, things like that. They take kids to school. When everybody as a whole starts to see this, then this gender gap will start to actually change. But it's not going to start in the kitchens of hotels.
Yeah.
It has to start in society as a whole.
Yeah. Any other topics on the season that you think, hey, you're really looking forward to exploring?
All of them. Oh my gosh. So I really love on my social channels. I love when I travel, people constantly DM me, where is this? I want to know where Chef Adrianne's eating and drinking. What bar did you go to when you were in Arizona? Or where did you stay when you went to Santa Barbara? Things
Right,
like that.
right.
So I love sharing where I'm eating, where I'm drinking, where I'm staying, because people look at chefs and they're like, well, they know what's good. They know who's cooking there or who's the mixologist there or whatever. So they want to follow in kind of like, if this is what they're having, I'm having this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of like my favorite topic.
Kind of where they eat, where the
Yes.
real culinary groups go to. Sure.
Yes. So I'm so interested in getting some of my favorite chefs on the show so that we can ask them where they're eating and where they're drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listeners of Chef AF, this has been both the culinary crowd. We've seen some of the demographics on the podcast, and really what surprised me in the numbers of the subscribers was that we were also seeing a lot of we'll call them food influencers, not necessarily in the business, but they're in the business in a different way.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like the industry has really had an explosion of people that are attracted to what's happening in the culinary business.
Well, that brings me right back to why I love food so much. It affects everybody. Everybody. And I think the listenership here is going to grow exponentially, because whether you're an industry professional, like in the biz, you're cooking, or you're a purveyor, you're a farmer, you're a distributor, whatever it is, or somehow you're related, or you're just interested, everything that we do each day, somehow it's related to food, whether it's for celebrating, whether it's you're craving something and you have nothing, you're a banker. Let's say you have
Right.
nothing to do with food, but you're craving something, it has to do with food. Or, you're on a diet and now you have to stick to a certain food or a food group. Everything is related to food.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's become a societal norm
Yes.
nowadays, and it's also a huge part of entertainment.
Very big.
Where, what used to be, it was dinner and a movie. Now it's dinner.
Now it's dinner.
Which
it's
is
all dinner.
a 3-hour experience now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you open up your phone, you're going to see either babies, dogs, or food.
Yeah, that's true.
That's it.
And occasionally a cat.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about your restaurant openings and, some of the challenges that chefs face on launching new businesses. We'll be right back. Has your business hit a wall? Is your competition eating your lunch? I've been building breakthrough brands for over 20 years with experience right from the trenches. We deliver strategy, execution, and follow-through results in branding, technology, operations, marketing, and leadership. Become the breakthrough brand you should be. Contact me now at paulbarongroup.com. All right, so we're back here on the Barron Report, and we have Chef Adrianne Calvo in studio. So this is going to continue our conversation, Adrianne. Again, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into kind of the nitty-gritty here about running a hot operation right here in the heart of Miami. So you went from your restaurant in Kendall. Now you've got a couple of new ventures that you're rolling into. Talk to us about what you have going on.
Well, we're set to open in a couple of weeks. Cracked South Miami. We're 80 seats, indoor outdoor seating, and we're rolling out a fantastic menu that we already tested out in the food trucks, and our food hall and umbrella.
Okay.
And I mean, it's going to have a half menu of seasonal vegetables, roasted vegetables, things like that. We're going to have a menu full of plated, and then we're going to have a sandwich menu, which is what Cracked really got famous for.
Okay. All right.
So, we're set August 20th.
August 20th, so just around the corner here.
Just around the corner.
Maybe when this airs, it's open. And in the menu design itself, was this something that came from maybe exploring new things that you weren't able to do in your current restaurant? What was the genesis there?
Well, the genesis of Cracked was I've always had a really great passion for creating for my staff at Chef Adrianne's, for example, a family meal, like all the restaurants do.
Right.
So at the end of a shift or mid-shift, I'd be like, guys, I'm going to make you all a chicken sandwich, and that's something that it's fast and people at the end of the shift that were super hungry for. And my staff would be like, wow, this is the best chicken sandwich I've ever had, stuff like that. And then we'd make like a steak sandwich from like the trimmings of the fillets at Chef Adrianne's.
Okay.
And again, throw caramelized onions on there, provolone cheese, a nice buttered brioche bun. And people would be like, oh my God, this is the best.
This should be on the menu.
Yes, exactly. But not really a place for it at Chef Adrianne's.
Right.
So Cracked, that's kind of the evolution of Cracked as a food truck. So I'm like, this is perfect for a food truck.
Right.
Let's make these really artisan, chef-driven sandwiches, and kind of like the maximum flavor backbone of everything that's the core of Chef Adrianne's. So everything that we implemented into the Cracked sandwiches is exactly the way we cook at Chef Adrianne's for 12 years,
Okay.
And then we were like, well, we have to balance this. This cannot just be sandwiches, So we're going to make the best truffle fries we've ever made. We're going to make vegetables too, because we want people to, if you want to have a chicken sandwich, fine, fried chicken sandwich. But let's say if you're into, let's do something for the vegetarians. So roasted Brussels sprouts with a nice truffled soy vinaigrette and shaved fresh pear. The flavors in this dish alone. I mean, we're in a generation now that people love Brussels sprouts.
Right.
But now when you combine them with fresh pear, that sweetness, that additional crunch, and then that umami from the soy and the truffle, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So we created an addictive menu, I think. And then we did pepperoni pizza fries, which is
all right,
an Instagram sensation. And we're like, okay, we're kind of in a place where people are going drinking and partying. So we didn't just slap on fries with pizza toppings. We did not do that. Although visually it looks like a pepperoni pizza on top. But underneath, we make a classical French Mornay sauce, which is one of the mother sauces.
Okay, yeah.
Finished with a little bit white truffle as well. So it's fancy meets casual.
Right.
And that's kind of what Cracked is, what I call fine casual.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. So Cracked is coming open. Let's talk about some of the challenges you faced with opening that, because sometimes going from 1 to 2 is a big jump,
Yeah, I mean,
for
it's
an
a
operator.
Jump. It took me 10 years to expand.
Yeah.
The challenges are you really start to question, can I do this? Simple. That question, can I do this? And that's because you start to get in your head about quality. You're like, okay, I'm in charge of, at Chef Adrianne's, I'm there day in, day out, and I can control each fillet that passes through my hands, things like that. And then you start to realize that through this decade, you've actually built a team that believes in you and believes in exactly what you've been doing for so long. And they want to emulate the craft down to the T. So I spent 2 years really training our staff for Cracked and really like on top of them like a hawk. Like I'm like, you did not season this exactly as I would. Do it again. Throw it in the trash. Do it again. I'm like, okay. So And the truck at the wharf and the spots at the food hall really helped kind of get people. It was like training, where this was training camp for now. So I saw, we kind of weeded out who really made it through and who had to go. So I'm like, you have to cook for each guest, each chicken sandwich that goes out of there. Pretend that it's your favorite, either your favorite singer, your favorite movie star. It's a dream come true for you to serve this person this plate of food.
That's great.
And I'm like, and if you're not cooking like that, you can't cook here. And
wow. Okay.
yeah, well, and I'm like, and don't take this as like, oh, you're just cooking for crack, a chicken place or whatever, or a fast casual place that's opening up soon. No, this is your resume, because whether you stay with me for the rest of your professional career and you're going to then go up the ranks, or wherever else you're going to cook, you're building your reputation right now.
Yeah.
And my executive chef now, who's been with me also for 12 and a half years, she believes, also a woman, believes in things the same way as I do. So we've kind of split apart into, okay, you're training these guys, I'm training these guys, and so we built this league of exceptional chefs now.
I like that. Yeah. The League of Exceptional Chefs.
It's a next Marvel movie.
Yeah, sounds like the League of Extraordinary, but that had gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
So we got to go away from that. All right, so getting people trained up, really a big process in getting to that level of quality.
Yes.
When you look at the aspect of the business, all right, whether it's, securing funding, getting the right real estate, understanding all the licensure requirements, what was that process for you?
For me, since I've done it already, it was actually a relief, because when I did it over a decade ago, there wasn't so much online readiness and so much knowledge. You kind of had to learn, and you had to make a visit to all your permitting places, learn about it, go back a couple of times because things were wrong. So a lot of time back and forth. Now a lot of things are available online. So, if you don't know what you got to do, it's kind of on you.
Yeah.
So if you're opening up a restaurant, first get on your friend Google and look at the list of all your municipality requirements, because they're different from your city and your state.
Yep.
So make a list. And that's what I did. I made a list of exactly every single permit I needed to have for that area. And thankfully, funding one restaurant funds another one.
Sure.
So we were successful and profitable right from the jump. With Cracked, right from the food truck, right from the food hall. So very thankful for our following with that. So everything else is kind of just, once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you don't forget.
Yeah, you just keep going on it. Yeah. New bikes, bigger bikes, faster bikes.
Faster bikes. This time, the permitting and everything was a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. If you're looking at, say chefs coming out of culinary school, female chefs, what would you say to them today? Hey, this is knowing what you know now, and what would you say to them about getting started?
Getting started, I would say, a lot like now I go talk at culinary schools a lot, and every single student there wants to have their own restaurant or their own show. And ironically, I have to say that's never going to happen. But I opened my first restaurant right out of culinary school, so I'm not an example. But they all want to just graduate, and they think they're going to have a restaurant, and they can't imagine the amount of work that it really takes. Because I've had chefs come in, or culinary students, to do their internships, and you would not believe the amount of they think they're working doubles, they're really working 6 hours. I'm like, oh boy, no. You're not even you're just at the cusp of what this industry is. If they work, 5 nights in a row, they think like they're dying. So I think stamina is something that I think they really have to understand. It's not just say like, no, this is a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but you can't imagine the grueling physical labor, and then the mental stamina that you have to keep going, and you have to produce a quality that it's from when you start your shift at 5 p.m., that same quality has to be at 11 when you close.
Right.
And that's something that I think I'm going to continue to go to schools to try to drill that into culinary students, because they're the future of the food industry. So, it doesn't just, you don't snap your fingers and poof, it happens. There's a lot of work.
Well, I think that at least, today there's kind of the misnomer of culinary students, and I would agree with you that you see a different, because I get a chance to interview a lot of young chefs, and I do see the ones that are starting to break out of the pack that do have that work ethic.
Yeah.
They do have that stamina
Yeah.
that's needed to kind of move to the next level. But listen, not every chef is going to open a restaurant.
Right.
They might just be a great, sous chef or executive chef for a hotel or something of that nature.
Right.
Not that those are bad. It's just that when you step into the role of owner operator, I mean, literally, you're in the big league.
Oh, no, it's a whole different arena.
Yeah.
You look at everything from smallwares to your finished dish. You're looking at it not just presentation-wise, are my guests going to love it, but you're also looking at it as a number sign.
Yeah.
Your bottom line.
Right, absolutely. Real estate, last topic here.
Yeah.
Real estate is and has been one of those things that independents kind of struggle with, because you're now vying for spots that some cases national brands are
Right.
looking at now due to popularity. How do you deal with that?
Real estate. See, that's a controversial topic for me, because I know that in the food world, it's always been location, right? But that's changed in the last few
Right,
years. I
right.
mean, it's for me, it was not the norm. I opened my first restaurant off the beaten path, way in the suburbs, in a shopping center next to a tire shop.
Right.
And when I opened, my type of food was not in the area at all. It was unknown. People said I would fail, not just for the location, but for the menu itself. I was out of my range and,
Interesting. Okay.
out of my mind, really. So for me, people were driving. Once they got a taste, one told the other. And this is before social media as well.
Right.
So this was word of mouth. And then people were telling people to go there, to drive there. So for me, real estate, location, and all of that, it's second on the list to your product. People will drive. They'll fly, they'll drive, they'll talk about your place, as long as it's a good product.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit on something, and that is great product, great service, kind of creates, in essence, a notoriety of certain restaurants. Obviously, if you're in the, right in the line on South Beach or something like
Yes.
that, I mean, now you're dealing with just pure competition. Now
Right.
it's just cutthroat on the sense of who's getting those reservations on Saturday night.
Correct. That's a whole different arena as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Chef, it's been great having you in studio here with us. Thanks for stopping in on the show today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. It was wonderful.
All right. We're going to be wrapping up. Make sure and listen in on this podcast and others here on Foodable Network. You can, of course, catch this at foodabletv.com. You can also, if you have some great ideas that you'd like us to cover here on the Barron Report, make sure and send us a note to producer@foodabletv.com, and we'll get back with you. And hopefully the next great idea or the next great chef will be yours, and you'll be right here in studio with us. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.